I'm Aundrea Cline-Thomas. During this election season, voter enthusiasm was at an all-time high, not just in our area, but around the country. Because of the pandemic, more people mailed in their ballots, while others waited in lines for hours despite the weather. Now, all of the votes have been counted, and in most races, the winners have been identified. Now what? To really make the changes you want in your communities, voting was just the first step in the process. Dr. Sarah Sayeed is here to walk us through how you can stay involved and hold your public officials accountable. She's a chair and executive director of the New York City Civic Engagement Commission. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on today. It's a really exciting moment to be having this conversation.
What does the commission do? I know it was just established in April of 2019.
It's nonpartisan, and we are really looking, our mission is to increase and improve civic engagement broadly across a variety of groups, and to really make sure, the focus is to make sure that the people who haven't been involved are involved. And we also want to make sure that we're building trust between community groups and community organizations and across partisan lines for people to really have more engagement and civil discourse.
There's so much participation, right? And I met a lot of first-time voters who they were eligible to vote in past elections, but just never did for whatever reason. And they came out now. You know, how do you make sense of the enthusiasm, and how do you harness it moving forward?
With the pandemic and with, economic and racial injustices in our country, I think people are really looking for solutions that work, and they're tired of, having the same problems come up again and again without meaningful solutions. And that's part of why they're raising their voices. And it's also an opportunity for government to listen better to those voices and just make sure that we are communicating with people in a way that tells them that their voice really matters.
There hasn't always been this participation, or there's this distrust in government. Explain to people why voting is really just the first step in the process, and why and how they should be involved moving forward.
What happens once you vote someone into office? How do you hold them accountable? And holding them accountable means getting involved on a day-to-day basis and really thinking about what are the avenues at the local level where you can have a voice, right? So if you, for example, attend your precinct council meeting, you will be able to understand better how public safety decisions are being made. If you go to a community education council, as a parent, you'll be able to have a voice in what's happening in the school system, right? And then there's community advisory boards that health institutions have, and community boards as well. I mean, there's a variety of ways that people could get involved that I think will make democracy a lot more vibrant and healthy.
I want to talk about the participatory budget, which is really just a fancy way of explaining that people can have their input on how money is allocated. And you all are really focusing on youth voices, which is really different. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, what this allows us to do is engage residents directly to participate in decision-making of the commission, and hopefully, other agencies will also be able to leverage the platform. The youth piece is something that we wanted to do because young people are often not at the table when it comes to government decision-making for a variety of reasons.
So the ages 9 to 24 years old, and
that's right.
And they're going to allocate $100,000?
That's exactly right. Yeah, and we're starting by asking people, what do you need right now? And then taking those needs, organizations will propose solutions to those needs, and the young people will actually vote on which solutions they want funded by the commission.
We're going to switch gears for just one moment and speak to some of the youth fellows involved in the program.
Darlene Uzoigwe and Manahil Jaffrey are joining us now. Tell me specifically, what were you able to do?
So Manahil and I are both virtual facilitators. We run virtual events online, just talking to young people from all across the city and having them speak about their needs and so what's some of the issues that they've gone throughout this troubling time.
So many people are talking about mental health and specifically how during the pandemic, everyone's mental health is declining and they're really pushing for services and more help to address those issues.
You all have a hand in how $100,000 is going to be spent. You're saying, no, this is what I don't need this. I need this. How powerful does that make you feel?
It's an incredibly inspirational moment to be able to have that type of influence in my community, and they're having a voice, they're making an impact on those who are around them. So that's incredibly empowering in and of itself. But in addition to that, young people, it's shown me that if you give young people a platform, they're going to use it.
Knowing about this process and being engaged in this process will open so many doors into more opportunities to be civically engaged, and you could make a huge difference in your community.
What do you think about adults who choose not to get involved?
One of the primary reasons why people often take a backseat when it comes to being civically engaged is this thought in which we think that our voices simply don't matter. There's not our vote's not going to be enough to change anything. And I think that's such a destructive way of thinking. That mentality in and of itself is poison.
It is your voice, it is your platform, and it's the way that you could express your opinions and your values.
And I feel like sometimes your generation gets a bad rap. Meeting you all makes me so incredibly hopeful. So thank you for being involved.
Thank you.
And I think for a long time, what's been happening is that sense of mattering has been declining, and we want to do what we can to help restore that and strengthen that, to say that we really care what you're thinking and we want to hear from you. And not only do we want to hear from you, but we're going to take you seriously and integrate what you're saying into how we're making the decisions that we know are going to touch your life.
And really, communities can't change and communities can't improve if the residents don't feel empowered.
Yes, that's so true. And I think the empowerment also, like for me, it really has to be part of seeing themselves, in a community, right? Because people have to feel like, I care about my neighbor and what's happening to my neighbor, and I care about what's happening to me and my family, and we can work together to make sure that we influence policies and programs together, right? Because democracy is not just about one voice, it's about a collective voice. It's about people organizing around the issues that matter to them. And in order to do that, they have to talk to one another as well.
Dr. Sayeed, thank you so much for being with us today. As you said, we are at a crossroads, and I just really look forward to people just getting more involved in the process and making sure that their voices are heard.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about this topic.
We're going to put links to the various ways you can get involved across the tri-state area on our website at cbsnewyork.com.